Welcome back, everybody, to the Deep Dive. Today we are going to be taking a look at the online world, specifically the impacts of TikTok and some of these recent Google algorithm updates.
Yeah.
I mean, you've probably noticed things changing even just in your own online experience, right?
Yeah.
Like the way you find information, the kind of content that you're seeing.
Right.
And we've got a pretty interesting mix of sources for this deep dive.
Yeah.
From articles to these lively Reddit discussions.
It is a very interesting mix. Yeah.
All kind of pointing to like a digital landscape that's in flux,
Yeah.
right? It's changing.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. A lot of changes happening. I mean, you see it in articles, you see it in the Reddit discussions. It's pretty fascinating how they're all kind of like converging on these same kind of anxieties and topics,
Totally. So let's start with TikTok. I feel like it's kind of hard to ignore, like the huge popularity. They've got over 1 billion monthly users.
Huge.
People are creating and sharing content. People are going viral. People are even building their whole careers on this platform. But this article from Make Use Of kind of reminds us that it's not all fun and games.
Right.
They use the phrase, but as with so many social media apps, it's not all rosy.
Yeah. I mean,
And I think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
What struck me most, honestly, was the concerns about data privacy
You're right.
and Chinese influence.
It's scary.
It's very scary.
Yeah.
The article highlighted how governments in India, the U.S., and Afghanistan have banned it, citing security risks. And it really does make you think, what happens to all that user data, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can we truly expect a social media giant to remain neutral when there's, all this geopolitical pressure going on?
Well, yeah, and especially with an app like TikTok it's primarily focused on like fun and entertainment and kind of like, silly videos and stuff. People aren't really thinking about the implications of the data that they're sharing.
Right.
And that's kind of where it gets, a little bit concerning.
Totally. And the article doesn't even stop there.
No.
It also delves into like the potential impact of short-form videos on brain development, especially for the younger users, who are really their primary demographic.
Right.
And they even mention specific dangerous challenges that unfortunately have led to real-world consequences, like the skull breaker challenge.
Yeah, the skull breaker challenge is like a very real example.
So many injuries from that.
Right, of how a platform that's designed for entertainment can really have unintended and harmful consequences.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then there's the issue of censorship and like these opaque moderation practices, right? That same Make Use Of article mentions reports that like content from specific groups that use the words ugly, poor, or disabled
Wow.
were being suppressed. And it kind of makes you wonder what other types of content are being removed silently.
Right, yeah.
Based on what criteria?
Absolutely. And it's like, who's making those decisions?
Yeah.
What are those biases? It's really concerning.
Yeah, and I think this lack of transparency, it's not even limited to TikTok.
No, not at all.
You see it coming up with like these recent Google algorithm updates.
Oh, for sure.
The subreddit RSEO is like a buzz. They're trying to decode.
Right.
What is the impact of the August and December 2024 core updates?
And everyone's losing their minds because it's like, they come out so fast, it's like every few months there's a new core update. And it's like, are you serious?
Yeah.
I just figured out the last one, what's going on?
Yeah, I know.
So yeah, I totally get the anxiety, in those threads.
And one thread gives a very striking example. Seasonalcookbook.com,
Oh, yeah.
a website dedicated to seasonal recipes, experienced a 99% drop in traffic
Yeah.
after the August update.
It's brutal.
Can you imagine?
I can't even imagine, like, you're spending years building up a website. You've got your audience, you've got your recipes, and then all of a sudden
It's gone.
it's gone.
Overnight.
Yeah, brutal.
It's got to be devastating for these content creators.
Absolutely.
It feels like the rules of the game are constantly changing,
Right.
and it's hard to keep up.
It is. And I think that's kind of what's driving a lot of the anxiety and frustration, too, is that people are just like, I can't keep up.
Yeah.
I'm doing my best to, create good content, to follow the rules, and then the rules change, and it's like, come on, I can't keep doing this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
From what I'm gathering on Reddit, it seems like these updates are penalizing websites that rely on what they call SEO hacks,
Right.
like keyword stuffing, basically just cramming a ton of keywords into your content to try and game the search rankings.
Yeah.
It might have worked before, but Google's cracking down.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, they used to be able to get away with that stuff, and Google is getting a lot smarter. Like, they're really cracking down on those black hat tactics.
So it suggests like a shift in Google's approach,
Yeah.
like a move from simply being a search engine
Right.
to becoming more of a, quote, search and answer engine, as described in a technology thread.
Yeah, it's like they want to give you the answer right there.
Yeah.
They don't even want you to have to click on a website anymore.
Right. Instead of just providing a list of links,
Yeah.
Google's taking on the role of like curator,
Right.
deciding what information we see first.
And they're pulling it, like you said, from places like Reddit, Quora,
Yes.
these other sources where they deem, I guess, the information to be more valid or more, useful or something.
Right.
But it's interesting.
Pretty significant change.
Yeah.
And it leads us to this term that keeps popping up, enshittification.
Oh, yeah. Enshittification. It's a fun word.
Yeah, coined by Cory Doctorow.
Yeah, he's a smart guy.
Yeah.
Cory Doctorow. He's been talking about this for a while now.
Yeah, he argues that online platforms, they kind of go through these stages
Right.
of enshittification.
Yeah.
They first attract users and creators with a good experience.
Right.
Then they prioritize profits, gradually degrading the user experience to favor advertisers.
Right.
And their own bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, the platform becomes so unpleasant that users start leaving.
Right.
It's a very provocative term,
It is.
but it resonates with so many people
It does. It really does.
about how they feel about, like, the internet.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, you remember the early days of the internet. It was all about like, freedom of information, open access, connecting with people.
Yeah.
And now it's just like, ads everywhere, algorithms controlling everything,
Yeah.
it's a different beast now.
It really does feel like things are changing.
Mm.
And not always for the better.
No, not always.
There's a sense of unease, like, I feel it.
Yeah.
Like the internet, once this like vast and open frontier is becoming more controlled, more homogenized.
Yeah, it's like everything's starting to look the same, sound the same, It's losing that kind of like unique, Wild West kind of vibe that it used to have.
Totally.
That's a bummer.
Yeah, it is a little bit of a bummer. I agree.
Yeah.
It's really like thought-provoking,
Yeah.
this whole idea of enshittification
Yeah.
and like who benefits
Right.
from these changes, right?
Right.
Because it's not just about how we experience the internet.
Right.
It's impacting like businesses' online communities
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
big way.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a huge impact. We can't ignore the economic realities here, right? We
Yeah.
talked about individual websites getting affected by these algorithm updates, but like if you zoom out and consider the broader impact on businesses,
Yeah.
especially those that rely so heavily on Google search, right?
Right.
For their visibility, their customer reach, it's huge.
It must be so frustrating for business owners, right?
Yeah.
Who have poured their time and energy into building a website, optimizing it for search engines, getting those
Yeah.
customers, and then their rankings just like plummet,
Yeah. Overnight.
because of an algorithm change that they had no control over.
Right, exactly. And there's a ton of threads like on technology and RSEO that are just filled with like this feeling of frustration
Right.
from these business owners, They're expressing this like sense of powerlessness, like the rug's been pulled out from under them and rightfully so,
Totally.
Because it's not even just about losing visibility, it's about the potential loss of revenue, right? The impact on their livelihoods. Like
Right.
this is their business, this is how they make money. So like what can these businesses even do?
Right.
Is there anything they can do to like adapt to these constantly changing algorithms?
Yeah, it's a great question. And honestly, there's no easy answer, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, there are some suggestions in those Reddit threads.
Yeah.
Some people are talking about focusing on building a strong brand presence outside of Google,
Okay.
exploring alternative marketing channels like social media, email marketing, diversifying their online presence.
Okay.
So it's not just relying on Google as their sole source of traffic.
Makes sense.
But the problem is it's a very challenging landscape. And for a lot of small businesses, they don't have the resources, or the expertise to really navigate these shifts.
Totally. It sounds like a constant uphill battle.
It is. And then you think about the impact on online communities, right? Like we talked about how Google is prioritizing content from Reddit and Quora.
Yeah.
Does this shift in like these power dynamics spell trouble for like independent forums and niche communities.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the places where people used to go to find information and connect with others who shared their passions and interests.
I mean, there's definitely that concern, right? Like on Reddit, I see people talking about how funneling users towards just a few dominant platforms, it could lead to this like homogenization of online discourse.
Right.
Like this decline in the diversity of opinions and perspectives,
Hmm.
which is really what makes the internet such a rich and dynamic space.
Absolutely. I mean, imagine if everyone's getting their information from the same few sources, right?
Yeah.
And it's all filtered through the same algorithm.
Yeah, that is kind of unsettling.
It's a little bit creepy, right? And it raises all these questions about, like, what are we losing in terms of independent thought,
Totally.
you know, critical analysis? Like, are we all just going to be fed the same information and just accept it as truth?
Right.
And it's not just about, like, diversity of opinions either.
Right.
It's about the potential loss of community, you know? That sense of belonging that people find in these smaller niche online spaces where they can connect with others who really get them, you know?
Yeah, totally.
That share their passions, their interests, their, you know, quirks, whatever it may be.
So where do we go from here? Like, are we doomed to an internet that's dominated by a handful of these like powerful players?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it?
Are there like alternative search engines out there that offer a different approach?
Well, there are definitely some alternatives that are worth exploring, you know. Some of the ones that come up a lot in these Reddit threads are DuckDuckGo,
Okay.
Bing, and Coggy.com.
I've heard of DuckDuckGo.
Yeah.
They're the ones who are like all about user privacy.
Exactly. They don't track your searches or collect your personal data, which is a big draw for, you know, people who are privacy conscious.
For sure.
And then you've got Bing, which I think a lot of people still associate with just image search, you know?
Yeah.
But they've actually been making some pretty significant investments in AI and search technology.
Really?
Yeah, they're more closely integrated with other Microsoft products and services now.
Oh, okay.
And they offer some really cool features like image search, video search that, you know, rival and in some cases even surpass what Google's doing.
Oh, interesting.
And then there's Coggy.com, which is a bit of a newer player, but they're really focused on this like curated ad-free search experience.
Oh, nice.
They really prioritize user privacy and delivering like high-quality results.
That's great. So it's fascinating to see these like alternatives emerging, right?
Yeah.
And gaining some traction as people are seeking out these like different online experiences. But like realistically, can any of them truly compete with Google?
Right.
Like they have such a massive infrastructure. They have the data.
It's a tough question.
Yeah.
I mean, Google definitely has this like massive advantage, right? In terms of resources, data, and just like the way that they're integrated into our digital lives.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine a world without Google, honestly.
Yeah.
But I do think, you know, this growing dissatisfaction,
Yeah.
concerns about privacy, this idea of enshittification, you know?
Right.
Like maybe this will create an opening
Yeah.
for these alternatives to really grow and offer a genuine challenge to the status quo, you know? Like maybe this is the beginning of something new and different.
Almost feels like we're at this crossroads in the evolution of the internet.
Yeah, I agree.
Like on one hand, we have these powerful centralized platforms
Right.
with these super sophisticated algorithms that are shaping our experiences online.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, we have this like growing awareness, right?
Right.
Of the potential downsides of this approach and people wanting more control, more privacy, more diversity.
Yeah, absolutely.
No. What do you think? What does this future hold?
It's a good question. I mean, honestly, I don't have a crystal ball, right?
Right.
But I think it's a tension that we're going to see playing out for, you know, years to come.
Okay.
Because the internet's constantly evolving.
Right.
And it's up to us as users to really actively engage in shaping that future.
Yeah, I love that.
I love that.
I mean, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, right? The rise of TikTok, the anxieties about these Google algorithm updates,
Right.
the concept of enshittification.
Yeah.
It's easy to feel like overwhelmed by these big changes and the power of these tech giants, you know?
Right. It feels like kind of out of our control.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But it sounds like we can still do things as users
Absolutely.
to shape like the future of the internet.
Oh, yeah. It's important to remember, like, the internet is a reflection of us. the users,
Right.
the choices we make, both individually and collectively, they contribute to shaping the online world that we all inhabit.
So where do we go from here?
Right.
What can we actually do
Mhm.
to ensure a more open, diverse, and ultimately an enjoyable internet experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think awareness is a powerful first step, right? Like,
Yeah.
you're already doing that by tuning into the deep dive, engaging with these issues, understanding how these platforms work, the influence of algorithms, the potential consequences of, unchecked power.
Right. Knowledge is power.
Gotcha.
But what about concrete actions? What can we do beyond just being aware?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
let's start with search, right? We talked about those alternatives. DuckDuckGo, Bing, Coggy.com.
Right.
Even just trying them out occasionally
Mhm.
can make a difference.
How so?
Well, it's like casting a vote for a different approach to search.
Okay.
One that prioritizes privacy or maybe user experience or even just a different set of values.
Okay. So diversifying our search habits
Right.
is a good starting point.
Yeah.
But what about content?
Mm-hmm.
How can we, as users, combat this whole enshittification thing?
Yeah, that's where critical thinking comes in, right?
Okay.
Don't just passively consume everything you see online.
Right.
Remember that algorithms often prioritize engagement over accuracy.
Yeah.
So, fact check information,
Okay.
consider the source, be wary of clickbait headlines, overly biased content.
Almost like becoming an internet detective.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You got to be discerning about the information that you're consuming and sharing. And also, don't underestimate the power of supporting quality content creators,
Okay.
If you find a website, blog, forum, whatever, that's providing valuable, well-researched, thought-provoking content, share it, link to it, engage with it.
Yeah.
That kind of organic promotion can help counterbalance the algorithm's tendency to just favor these established players.
Like a digital grassroots
Yeah,
movement.
exactly.
Supporting the creators that we want to see more of.
I love that. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
What about the bigger picture?
Mm.
Is there anything we can do on a societal level to address these concerns about platform monopolies and the concentration of power online?
Well, I think the conversations that are happening on Reddit, like you mentioned,
Right.
about Google's dominance, those
Right.
are a good starting point.
Okay.
But they need to move beyond online forums, right?
Okay.
Into the public sphere.
Got it.
We need to engage with policymakers, advocate for greater transparency, accountability from these tech companies,
Yeah.
and explore ways to promote a more decentralized
And diverse internet ecosystem.
It's kind of inspiring to think that we're not just passive consumers
Yeah.
of technology.
We have a voice.
Yeah.
We can use it to shape the future of the internet.
Absolutely. The internet's still evolving. It's a reflection of us, the users, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our choices, our conversations, the actions we take. It can determine whether it becomes a tool for connection, creativity, and empowerment,
Yeah.
or a platform for manipulation, control, and homogenization.
Powerful stuff.
It is powerful.
Yeah.
So, fellow deep divers, what will you do to make the internet a better place?
Yeah. Think about that.
We've explored the challenges, we've discussed solutions. Now it's time to take action, engage in that critical thinking, support quality content, and advocate for a more open and diverse online world.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.